August 2004. Athens, the Olympic Games. A stifling rented apartment with no air conditioning. The owner of one of the world's most beloved companies gets a phone call. On the other end is one of his own employees, 35 years old and once a kindergarten teacher. He delivers the decision the owner had been dreading. He will have to step down. The owner hangs up. His wife, who heard the conversation, looks at him.
Did Jürgen just fire you?
The company is Lego, and at that moment it is losing almost $1 million a day. The bank whose board this owner had served on for years has just refused to lend the company more money, and a proposal is already on the table from Wall Street. Sell everything. And in the end, Lego's survival will come down to one strange number: 13.5. Not a billion, not a million, just 13.5.
But first, the company has to survive long enough to reach it. Bottom. So, how did the world's most famous building toy end up on the edge of death? The late 1990s, Billund, Denmark. Market research lands on Lego executives' desks, and all of it seems to say the same thing. The brick is dying. Children are moving to video games. Birth rates are falling across the West. Giant retailers are squeezing prices. In 2000, Lego is named Toy of the Century. The bitter irony is that by then, the company is already burning. 2 years earlier, Lego had posted the first loss in its history. The family brought in a rescuer, Poul Plogman, a former Bang & Olufsen executive with a reputation for turning companies around. This is important. Plogman was neither stupid nor a villain. He did exactly what the smartest business thinkers of the era were recommending. Diversify. Disrupt yourself before someone else does. Set the creators free. And Lego listened. Clothing, watches, in-house video games, television shows, 4 theme parks. Designers, the pride of the company, were freed from the dull obligation of thinking about production costs. Create. And they did. The number of unique elements roughly doubled, climbing past 12,000. Every new piece meant its own mold, its own inventory, and its own costs. It reached the point where the company could no longer answer a basic question. How much does this set actually cost to make? Is it feeding us or quietly bankrupting us? The clearest symbol of the chaos was Galador, action figures that barely looked like Lego, backed by their own television series. The show disappeared within months. Fans still remember the failure. It went so far that an outside professor seriously advised Lego to outsource production of the brick, as if the company's own product had become secondary. Then, the crisis stopped being theoretical. Core toy sales fell by roughly a quarter in a single year. Debt climbed to around $800 million. The following year brought the largest loss in company history. Do you know what kept Lego afloat during its darkest months? Bionicle, a story about biomechanical heroes born from desperation. One product line that was making money while almost everything around it was burning cash. By the autumn of 2004, the chief financial officer had even put the founder's house up for sale. When the owner's 80-year-old mother heard about it, she answered, "Then I will buy it myself." Bet.
Kjeld Kirk Christensen was the grandson of the carpenter who began making wooden toys in 1932, and the son of the man who turned the Lego brick into a system. He had spent his entire life inside the company. In January 2004, Plugman was removed and Kjeld returned to the top job. The headline said, "Kjeld is back." But after only a few months, he understood the hardest thing an heir can understand. The problem was not just the hired manager. it was not just video games. The problem was also him. So he placed everything on two men who could not have been more different. The first was Jørgen Vig Knudstorp, 35 years old, a former kindergarten teacher, then a McKinsey consultant, then a strategist inside Lego. A year earlier, Knudstorp had delivered a memo to management. We are on a burning platform. Lego was losing money, burning cash, and risking the breakup of the company.
The second was Jesper Ovesen, a financier from Danske Bank. In a crisis, nothing on Lego's balance sheet was untouchable. Ovesen sold the company's 3 corporate aircraft, he closed factories, and yes, he was the man who put the founder's house up for sale. Then came the autumn of fear. Danske Bank, the bank whose board Kjeld had served on, refused to provide the money Lego needed. Ovesen had to assemble a lending group from other banks. Morgan Stanley brought the owner a ready-made solution: sell Lego. All of it. Kjeld refused. Instead, the family injected roughly $160 million through Kirkby, and he made it clear this was the last time. One question remained: who would lead? The board doubted Knudstorp. He was too young, too inexperienced. Ovesen forced the issue with an impulsive email to the chairman, written entirely in lowercase. Its meaning fit into 2 lines. I have never seen this much disorder in a business. Make Knudstorp CEO as soon as possible. I do not want the job myself. And that brings us back to the stifling apartment in Athens. A phone call from Prague Airport. Are you saying I have to leave? Yes. The founder's grandson handed the family empire to a former kindergarten teacher. That was the bet. Turnaround. Knudstorp did not begin with a grand vision. He began with something less glamorous. Survive, count, cut. Control of the theme parks, Kjeld's lifelong passion, was sold. The parts catalog was cut almost in half. Thousands of jobs disappeared. Then Ovesen introduced the rule that changed everything. Every Lego set had to make money. The threshold was a 13.5% return on sales. There it was. Not a slogan, not a mission statement. 13.5, or the product did not launch. For the first time in years, Lego could see the truth. Which sets were feeding the company, and which ones were quietly consuming it. But now Lego faced the opposite danger: save the numbers and kill the creativity. Designers were given boundaries again: a target price, a clear audience, and a defined palette of parts. And then came the paradox that business schools still study. Constraints did not kill creativity. They switched it back on. Lego also did something proud companies rarely do. It started asking. Children, parents, and for the first time seriously, adult fans it had once treated as eccentrics. The adults answered, "Give us complexity, architecture, Star Wars, huge collector sets, all the way up to the Millennium Falcon." Lego gave it to them. Adult buyers became a market the traditional toy industry had barely understood. In 2005, the first full year after Knudstorp took over, Lego returned to profit. During the financial crisis of 2008, while banks were collapsing, Lego kept growing. In 2014, the Lego Movie earned almost $500 million worldwide. That same year, Lego overtook Mattel and became the world's largest toy company by revenue. The company Wall Street had proposed selling became the industry leader. And in 2025, its annual revenue reached about $13 billion, a record 83.5 billion Danish kroner. Lesson.
This story is usually told as a simple lesson in focus. Lego returned to the brick and won. That is a convenient half-truth. Lego nearly died not because it created too little. It nearly died because it tried to create everything at once. Each of Plumon's decisions looked logical on its own. By the standards of the era, many of them were. Together, they became lethal. The real rescue was not romantic. It was numerical. Lego had to relearn what its own brick cost. Innovation without discipline is not courage. It is a bet whose price no one knows how to calculate. But discipline without creativity is a slower kind of death. Lego survived because it found both halves, a dreamer who learned to count and a banker who learned to believe in a toy. The brick was never the problem. The problem was a company that had forgotten what the brick was worth. Every empire leaves a body. We do the autopsy. In the next dossier, a giant making the same mistake right now. Only this time, the kindergarten teacher has not arrived yet. Subscribe. The autopsy will tell us what happens next.